In today's video, we're going to jump into how I 3 times my commissions within 2 months without taking any more sales calls, without changing my offer, purely just changing my own skill set and taking full responsibility onto things. Before I was at around 5K a month, and then I hit a 15K a month. It was weeks from 2K, and then I hit a week where I made 10K USD in commissions. So cool. Let me jump straight into things. I've broken it down into 14 simple steps that are very actionable from this video. Okay. Step 1, you do not rise to the level of your call, you fall to the level of your pre-call systems. 90% of your success on a call is determined before the call. So the preparation you do. I think a huge thing I want to talk about is the setup. When you jump on a call with someone, they are more likely to buy by taking you a lot more seriously. So do not do things like wear a hoodie, like wear a cap, wearing stupid things and being in the random place, because people are not going to take you as serious as someone like a setup like this. Okay, that is a big thing. You don't need to go splashing on a setup, but at least have a good ring light, have a decent mic. You can reinvest this if you're already closing at 5K a month. Okay, even 3K a month, even 2K a month, it's a couple £100. So yeah, I definitely recommend doing that. Some things I want to touch on is the pitch deck. Okay, so when you get given a pitch deck as a closer, you want to dive and audit this and make sure it is as good as possible, and then it comes off the best that it can from you. So it's got to make sense to you. Audit your pitch deck. Make sure that you are confident presenting this, because when a prospect jumps on with you and you're presenting them what they're going to be spending their money on, it has to come across with conviction. Okay, so that's step 1. If you need any references, I will link something down below. Post-call booking video. This is another huge thing. Imagine you're a prospect, be in their shoes. You've just booked a call, and you're potentially looking to invest anywhere from $5 to $6 to $10 to $15,000 into a program where you're going to be learning a certain skill. The post-call booking video is the first thing they see after booking the call. It needs to hype them up. It needs to get them excited for the call. Okay. Another thing, training setters. A lot of closers think this isn't their responsibility. However, that has a direct correlation to your commissions. When you train the setters and you go out your way to help them get better, they give you better calls, the lead quality gets better, your show rate goes up, just these little tweaks, and you don't have to go crazy on it. I used to do this every single day, just 20, 30 minutes, giving them pointers. And this is why it is incredibly important to also understand your setting process. Step 2 is authority. In the first 60 seconds of the call is decided. Okay. If you let a prospect walk all over you and they do not respect you enough, they're not going to buy from you. It's as simple as that. Okay. For example, this guy come on with a huge ego, and I jumped in and I simply said to him how the call is going to go.
To see if we can help, because obviously we can't help everyone, right? If we can, we'll build something out. If we can't, I can still point you in, the right direction and give you some good advice. Yeah. Cool.
Perfect. So very, very important that you set the standard straight from the beginning. Obviously read the room. If you're with someone and they know it's a sales call, there are certain parts you do here. But however, once again, set up and just how you present yourself in the first 60 seconds will be incredibly important. Okay. Point 3, calling out language. This is absolutely huge and one of the biggest things that I changed in my process when I went from 5 to 15K a month in commissions. Understand your prospects' pain points and objections prior to the pitch. Okay. It is very, very important by calling out certain language. For example, if someone is defending their situation, making excuses, past failures, regret, everything from A to Z of their language or just doubt in general, you need to call out. And it is very, very important that you do this, because if you allow them to get away with rubbish early on and you allow them to talk like this, well, guess what's going to happen at the end of the call? They're just going to do the exact same. So if you can call this language out nice and early and understand certain language patterns, for example, the way they speak about success, the way they speak about their current situation, if they're defending their current situation, if they're sort of saying, oh, things aren't too bad, you need to call this out and dig deep on it, because if you could unravel that first layer, you're going to get to the real reason, and it's also going to save you a lot of time at the end of a call with objections. Okay. Step 4 is the timeline. I cannot stress how important it is to get the timelines for a clear picture. How on earth can you get a clear picture without getting the timelines? I see even elite closers now miss this out. They are missing every single time the actual timeline on certain things. For example, how long someone's had the goal for, how long someone's worked for, how long someone's felt like something for. Everything from A to Z. When they give you something and an opportunity to get a timeline, it is incredibly important that you do. Because if you don't, you're not going to have enough context. When it comes to objection handling, you aren't going to have anything to link it to. You're not going to have any timelines to link it to. So then the urgency is built up. For example, say someone says to me, I felt like this for XYZ 2 years. I can then say to them to bring out even more pain. And how does that sit with you when they hear that? Okay. If you're not doing that, it's incredibly surface level and it's not going to progress for sale in any way, shape, or form. Plus, also getting the timeline creates a gap in the prospect's mind that you didn't even know existed. When they hear themselves say they've had the pain or had the goal for a long amount of time, guess what? It makes them realize that, oh my God, I need to change, right? Also, whereas say someone has recently decided to make the change, it's a recent thing, you can ask them what change is also going to bring out pain or a solid reason why they need to buy on that call today. Number 5 is surface level answers. This is another absolutely huge thing that I see time and time again, and something that I struggle with myself when I was at 5K a month, and then I made the transition to hitting the big numbers. And my close rate, I'd say, went from anywhere from 30% all the way up to 60 and even 70% on some weeks. Okay. Another thing was getting surface level answers and actually digging deeper. This was incredibly important in times like when you're asking someone about their current situation, asking someone about their goals. For example, when someone says, yeah, my job's all right, what does all right actually mean? Okay. Yeah, I just want more freedom. What does freedom actually look like? My goal is to make more money. What is more money? What does more money do for you? If you're not getting these things, you're not building a very clear picture. That way you can't even link it in. You can't even find the pain, right? How do you expect someone to buy from you if you don't even know their full situation? So when you have a chance to dive very deep and get very clear, even if you don't feel like you need to get clear, I'd get clear anyway. Every single time I get clear and get the timeline, that goes hand in hand so well. You're getting the timeline and you're getting proper answers, not just surface level answers, not just, more money, my job's all right, things aren't too bad. You need to get specific. And I see time and time again, very good closers, they just take this for an answer instead of diving incredibly deep into things. Okay. Because when we don't do this, right, we don't actually have an understanding of what's happening and what they mean by what they say. Remember, when a prospect says something, it's never about what they say, it's what they mean by it. Number 6 is not calling out rubbish early. Once again, incredibly important, and it goes hand in hand with the language point mentioned before. And if we let these red flags just pass by because we're being polite, then it becomes a case of they feel like they can walk all over you and feel like they actually cannot tell you the truth. So once again, when they're giving you a limiting belief, or for example, they've said, things were just a bit scary, we need to call that out very, very soon and offer a different perspective, because if we allow them to maintain the same mindset that they come into the call with, guess what happens? We do not progress the sale. We do not change everything. And that is why you are getting objections at the end of the call. Okay. For example, a bad example would be like just being like, yeah, maybe, you're not a good fit for this. For example, say, a prospect had said to you, yeah, man, I mean, my job's going well. Instead of saying, man, I mean, what is it that you're even looking to potentially change? And because things sound like they're going incredibly well, a bad closer would be like, yeah, I mean, maybe not just cut out for this and, they end the call. So always, always, always recognize the language and call that out rubbish early on. Step number 7 is knowing when to consequence. This is absolutely huge, because I see a lot of closers right now consequence at the end of discovery. Me personally, I do not do that because I want them going into the pitch on a high from future pacing. So knowing when to consequence with certain people as well is very important. For example, if someone actually has a very good life and they're not in the worst position possible, we do not consequence them on inaction, because look, their life doesn't actually suck. So there's no point. They're just going like, what is this guy on about? Knowing when to consequence as well with guys with a lot of pain is doing things like consequence them early on when they're giving you information about their job, being like, and how much longer do you see yourself working there? Consequence in their mindset as well when you unravel the objection and you unravel what the real objection is, whether it be pain, whether it be fear of getting scammed, whether it be fear in general uncertainty, you need to know how to consequence their mindset moving forward. And that is what pre-handling looks like, in a very good example. Okay. Another thing is consequencing, at the end of the call, at the end of discovery, doesn't really work for me. Didn't really make sense for me because it always brings someone down on a low. However, if we consequence them and make it very clear on, look, what happens if we do not make the change, but we don't do it in a salesy way, that will work incredibly, incredibly well. Point number 8 is being attached to the sale. When you're needy, when you feel like you just need the money, the prospects will sense it. And I promise you now, the call will not go the same way that you want it to. And this starts from you. Okay. In objection handling, in discovery, it will show it's rushed. It will show you're not as calm as possible. Imagine, you're in a really, really fearful position and you're scared of taking a jump. And, the closer on the other end of the phone is getting all needy, getting all frustrated. It is going to show there and then. So another thing is being attached to the sale. You need to be detached. I think it is one of the most important principles in high ticket closing, because if you're not detached, it's not going to come across very well on the call. People aren't going to treat you as a professional. So it's very, very important to have them pre-call processes in place, even if you're coming off, the back of a bad call or a bad week and you need to make money to obviously survive. You still need to maintain the same mindset of, look, I'm going to this, having a conversation with the person to see if this would be a good fit. Okay. If I can help this person, that way you'll do a much better job. You'll ask much better questions. Number 9 is objection handling. Okay. The best closers solve objections before they arise, and see how this is all linking in: the pre-handling, the calling out, the language, everything from A to Z in that. Okay. With objection handling in general, being detached, once again, the point before, is incredibly important. However, you can pre-handle most objections when you have a proper discovery. The only reason you may get an objection is because you haven't called out the language. You haven't unraveled the real reason someone hasn't made the change in the past timeline of having the goal, and also why someone isn't actually committed to making the change today. So real objections is discovered in the discovery by language, by the way someone's speaking about their current situation, by how someone speaks about their belief systems around certain things. So it is your role going back and watch your calls and see where you could have done better. And I guarantee you will see where the objection has linked to where you missed in discovery. Number 10 is follow up. A lot of deals are won after the call. I see time and time again, and this is something I missed again when I was, at 3 to 5K a month. I wasn't following up with people. Okay. Follow up with people every single day with results until they block you. I promise you now, another 30 to 40% of deals will come in. The deal is won after the call when they do not close. I've had countless and countless follow-ups when someone has literally left the call because I'm that close to getting them on the call, and they have then paid after the call because I've sent them testimonials relating back to them. I've sent them daily results. And think about if you were a prospect. If you saw every single day someone sending you a result, it's going to trigger that much FOMO, that much curiosity. You will crack eventually. So look, do not be a lazy closer. Do your follow-ups, have the correct system in place, manage your follow-ups very well, even hire a VA to help you manage this. It is that important. It can make the difference between 5 and even 30K in commissions. Number 11 is pre-call systems. It's going to be incredibly important to make sure you have these things in place. For example, an introduction video. Small things, but most closers miss it. Introduce yourself to the prospect before, they've even jumped on the call, is going to increase your show rate massively. Pre-frame doc, knowing how to frame the call, and then also qualify messages. Forget what the setters have done. You can then generate even more urgency from texting the prospects. Most closers wake up, they want to go on just look at their calendar, jump on the calls there, and they do not want to do any of this before. You can use the same intro video. However, I'd recommend making a tailored one every single time. It'll take you 20 seconds of your time. It'll make the biggest difference, because imagine you were once again spending anywhere from 5 to 15K on a program, and you get a personalized video. It shows how professional you are, shows how serious you are about actually changing this person's life. So do not be lazy and do it. Number 12 is what you do outside of calls. Your inputs determine your outcome, not talent. Obviously, talent plays a massive part. However, if you reverse engineer your goal, you then have that much clarity on what you need to do on a daily basis to solve your goal and achieve it. Okay. So say I wanted to hit 15K again. What I would do, I'd ask myself, what does that closed version of me do differently to what I'm doing now to have achieved that? For example, call reviews. Once again, most closers are incredibly lazy and they won't even review their own calls. They won't watch other closers' calls that are better than them to learn more. Okay. Journaling. Gratitude is a very, very key thing. And mental momentum in closing is a huge thing, right? If you have high frequency and you're going into calls on a good mood, guess what? You're much more likely to close that deal because the energy will come across on the call. Journaling what I'm grateful for, journaling what I could improve on, journaling what I went well. That is always things I used to do. Step 3, meditation. Implement this today. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes before you go to bed. It will make you incredibly calm, and this links to being detached from the sale. Okay. Role plays. I do not care if you're a beginner or at 20K a month, you need to role play at just at different levels. Okay. So you need to keep track of what actually is going wrong. What can I improve on? And then you can do training in the meantime with that. Do not be a lazy closer. Implement these things and you will see a difference pretty much instantly. Number 13 is input from feedback. Okay. Success likes speed. So you need to be incredibly quick when it's coming to feedback and inputting that feedback. The best closers, it is okay if they mess up. However, what they do and what everyone has in common is we implement incredibly fast. For example, continuously ask what you could be doing differently. Ask your sales manager, ask your coaches, what could I improve on? What do I need to work on? And input that incredibly fast. Okay. Here, example, reviewing calls weekly, review calls daily, log what doesn't work and what does work. Okay. It is also very, very important to do that as well, because then you can track, okay, what objections am I getting constantly? What do I need to get on here to make this a difference? Okay. So also, end of day reports. Go and look at all your end of day reports and see where the common traits are on bad days. An actionable step you can take right now is go and look at your best month in sales and think, what was I doing in my personal life and what was I doing in my business life that made that such a good month? Now, guys, if you need any help, my DMs are always open. I will link my one-to-one link in the description and you can book in a call and see if I can help in any way, shape or form. It's been a pleasure. Peace out.